Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sharks Happen. On today's episode we are going to go over, I believe it's 3 spearfishermen that get involved with sharks. We're going to go over a swimmer. We're also going to go over a crazy attack at the end of the show, which you don't hear that every day. At the end of the show I'll have some comments and a little story for everybody, and you should stick around. It's going to be a great show. Okay, now we're going to start the show over at Highborn Cay, and that is in the Bahamas. And the date is August 9th of 1989. Jill St. Clair, she is 31 years old, and she is out doing some spearfishing with her husband. No time of day, she's out and she's in the water, and she has just shot herself a grouper. Sounds like she got it all the way back to her hand, and as soon as she got it to her hand, she said a shark came out of nowhere and grabbed her by the hand and had both her hand and the fish and started dragging her along the water, and she was able to get her hand out. I believe it was her right hand, but her left hand. She was able to get her hand out of the shark's mouth, eventually yanking it out, and then she got to the surface. She said she looked at her hand and she knew it was gone, so she knew she was going to end up losing the hand when she got in to get help. She got into their dinghy, and then when they got back to the boat, her husband went ahead and tied off a tourniquet with an anchor line and then called in for help. Now there was a doctor, a plastic surgeon, that was in the area, and he heard the call for help and he met them, and he was able to go ahead and give her intravenous medicine and wrap her arm while they waited for the paramedics to get there. When they got there, they ended up flying her by helicopter to Nassau. They had to amputate her hand and fit her for a new hand. That's the attack on Jill St. Clair. They did not identify the shark, and being in the Bahamas, there's probably a ton of sharks that could have done this. Even, you know, the reef sharks that are over there, whether it's a large blacktip reef shark could grab your hand and drag you along. It doesn't take them much to be able to do so. So we don't know what size, what kind of shark to drag her along like that. It was probably a decent sized shark. So I'm going to put this in the stats as an attack, not an attempt to predate. We just don't know what kind of shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to Singer Island, and that is over in Florida. The date is April 13th of 2016. Kyle Senkowicz, he is 25 years old. He and some friends are out doing some spearfishing. The first thing they do, they're 2 miles off the shore in 200 feet deep water. They spread chum across the top of the water, and then they enter the water. They're attracting the sharks, mostly bull sharks, it sounds like. And they do this all the time, swim with them, and what they're after is the cobia, the fish that are following the bull sharks, to eat their scraps. So the bull sharks eat the fish that they're going to eat, and the cobia eat the scraps from the bull sharks. And they're after the cobia that are following the bull sharks. So, you know, it's sharks. I'm not going to be there trying to catch the fish that are following the sharks, but hey, to each their own. So they're in the water. They've shot 4 cobia and they have them in the boat. Now, Kyle, he is 40 feet deep when he says he shoots himself a cobia that's following a shark. When he shoots the cobia, it startles the shark and the cobia, so the shark that the cobia was following takes off, so does the cobia. He starts going to the surface and reeling in his fish at the same time. All of a sudden he's hit from the right side in the arm by a different shark, and he says that he got off of him, but then it bit him in the wrist. So he got a bite mark to his hand, wrist area, and the forearm, and I think the other bite might involve the elbow as well, but he does have an arc of teeth marks in his arm. So it was a 2-bite situation. Sounds like the second bite, it shook his hand a little bit and then went on its way. He gets into the boat and they get him into shore in about 10 minutes, and he gets help. He ends up with a wounded, like I said, arm. Had to get stitched up in his hand. They would need 6 weeks of rehabilitation, and he should get full recovery of the use of everything. So no nerves, no arteries, anything like that. And a bull shark, again, 7-foot bull shark that came in and got him. He said that there was about 30 of them in the area at the time. 30 bull sharks you're swimming in the water with. And one of them, he says that, that's a normal thing, and they mind their own business, usually leave them alone. And this time, one of them he said it was acting crazy when it came up and bit him. So, and then went on its way. So Kyle Senkowicz will go down as an attack. Not an attempt to predate, 7-foot bull shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to a spot known as the Steppes, and that is in South Africa. The date is May 28th of 1996. Donovan Kohne, he is 17 years old. He is out with 5 other surfers in the water. It's 2:45 in the afternoon, and he is located about 110 yards or 100 meters from shore. No telling the depth of water, and like I said, it's 2:45. Donovan is sitting on his board. He's facing the ocean. He's facing out to sea, and the witnesses say that the shark approached him from behind. So he's facing the sea. The shark is coming from the beach side, comes up behind him and clamps down on his left calf, thigh, and board. And he's got the board to where he's got all 3 of the tri-fin. It's a tri-fin board. So 3 fins in the bottom of the board. All 3 are in the shark's mouth. So it's got his leg and the board in his mouth. Now the shark shakes him around, so the friends are seeing him shaking around, and his one friend ends up seeing that, and he says that he paused for a few seconds, and then he just freaked out and swam to shore. He said that Donovan had caught a wave in and made it in before he did. But the oddest thing is after the shark shook him, it shook him a couple times and then let go, but it ended up throwing him in the air, and he landed on the shark. So he said that he looked up and he saw a big fin right in front of him, and he said it was freaky. So he took his board and put it between him and the shark and pushed the shark away from him. And that's when he caught a wave in. They go ahead and deal with a traumatic bite to the thigh and to the calf. And he ends up with some damage that even 20 years later, I think the story that I read is 20 years later, but it's an update on him recent times when he does a Ironman competition. So it does say in there that he does not have normal use of his legs still to that day. So he had some pretty major damage from this shark. They looked at the wound. They had a tooth fragment from it, not the whole tooth, but a little chip of the tooth. And it was serrated. You can see the serratings in it, the serrations in it. And it was, they said, a 2.5 meter or 8-foot great white shark that came up behind him from the beach side and grabbed him by the leg and shook him, tossing him back onto the back of the shark. And then he was able to push himself off and get to shore. Put this down as an attack. Not an attempt to predate. 8-foot great white shark on Donovan Kohne. Okay, now we're going to head back to Miramar, the Miramar subdivision in Cuba. And the date on this attack is August 23rd of 1931. Laureano Rodriguez, he is out at the beach, or going into the water off of Miramar subdivision in Cuba. He enters the water, he's there with friends, and he's the first one into the water, and they say he's attacked by a shark. The shark comes up, and they said that it bites him in the leg, and he's able to get freed, and the shark came back and attacked him again more viciously. And his friends had to fight the shark off of him. They end up getting him to shore. He ends up losing the leg, is what I have seen in the story that I'll put in this, but I see that says that he lost the leg, and there's no telling what happened on the first attack, or if that's the second bite. It sounds like that would be the second bite, but they don't identify the shark. Being Cuba, a lot of those are probably going to be like great whites, tigers. So don't know what kind of shark did this. Probably a pretty large shark to grab him and try to drag him off, and the people have to fight it off, and it ends up taking his leg. He ends up a fatality from it. Pablo Medina, We covered him. I'm not sure if he's the one that was swimming from the boat that was about 500 yards from shore, and he tried swimming his way to shore and he just got mangled by a shark on the way in. That could be a different one. The only other one I remember from Cuba is the hot air balloon that went down in the harbor there, Havana Harbor, when it was doing the air show, and it went down and that guy fell out of the balloon before it got to the water, and then the sharks ate him there. So that's the attack on Laureano Rodriguez, an attempt to predate. We just don't know what kind of shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to Key Biscayne, and that is in Florida. The date, February 2nd of 2019. Alvaro Ordonez, he is 50 years old, and he and some friends are out doing some spearfishing. They are 3 miles from shore, and no telling depth of water. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. Alvaro has just speared himself a fish, and he's at the surface. It sounds like he's right at the surface, and he's hauling in a fish to pull back to put on the boat. And it's said that 4 to 6 sharks started circling him as he was pulling that in. And one of these sharks was a bull shark. And Alvaro says this thing came straight at him, and he grabbed it by the snout and kind of flipped it over. He says he was almost had it flipped over, but he couldn't quite do it because it was too big. So this is probably a pretty big bull shark that it turns out to be. I don't know what the other sharks were, but he mentions that one of them was a bull shark, and that's the one that came at him, and he grabbed it by the snout and tried to flip it over. But in the process, he ended up getting bit in the hand pretty bad, and I don't even know if he was aware of it at the time that it happened. But the shark, he said, was definitely after the fish, which we've had in a few of these. And the shark released him and went on its way. Now his buddy's on the, or I don't think he's on the boat, I think he's in the water, but he looks over and he sees all the fins around him and thinks that the shark went after and got the fish. And when he gets there, and he says he grabs his buddy by the hood, and he's dragging Alvaro back to the boat, and he notices that the blood is coming from his arm and not from the fish. So they get him back on the boat, they get him into land. He ends up with some pretty bad damage to his wrist and hand. He ends up, they have to end up sewing back together tendons that are going to help his nerves for his fingers. And there was an artery that was cut, so you know he was going to have quite a bit of probably rehabilitation from this thing. Like I said, it's a bull shark. We don't know what size of bull shark, so we'll have to put this down as another attack and not an attempt to predate by a bull shark that we don't know the size of. Okay, now we're going to finish off the unprovoked attacks. We're going to head over off of the east coast of Australia, and the date on this is May 20th of 1966. Daniel Magel, he is one of the members, crew members on a boat, the HMAS Vendetta. And there's 14 members on the boat. I believe there's 14, but we'll get into that real quick. They are in a shipwreck, and the wreckage is found the next day. So overnight, all the wreckage and the men are in the water, and the ship arrives the next day to rescue these people, but there's no survivors to rescue. One of the people that were rescued, the remains were brought on board, was of Daniel Magel, and they went through all the things that had happened to his body. He ended up with bite marks, removing almost all the flesh on the right arm all the way down from the shoulder to the hand, trachea, the whole throat, basically, it sounds like, was gone. There was bite marks all over the body of all different sizes. So this is a number of sharks that went ahead and bit on him. They just all over his body there was bite marks. Loss of flesh in a lot of them, but some of them, the bigger ones, there was no loss of flesh, just teeth in there. So some of the sharks were not actively feeding on Daniel. And then the coroner's report said that the lungs, they were dry. So they put down the cause of death as those injuries from those sharks. So unfortunately, he was alive when he was attacked by the sharks. As far as everybody else that was on board, they were able to recover 4 more bodies. So they got 4 of the bodies out of the water. 13 they never saw. but I think that includes one body that was being chewed on by sharks, unidentified sharks. When they pulled up, there was remains of a body that was being eaten by sharks, and then they had a grapple that was bringing up a body, and the sharks grabbed the body and pulled it off of there, and that one disappeared. So the 13, I think, includes those two that just were taken by the sharks as they went there to go ahead and pull everybody out of the water. So that's the attack on Magel, which isn't going to go into our stats as far as an attack by one shark. We'll put it down as, sea disaster, like I have for these sea disasters, and it's going to go down to sharks, and we just don't know what size. And they were saying that they think maybe it was great whites, but who knows? You're out in the ocean and a ship goes down. Pretty much any shark that's in the area that heard it, that could smell the oils or anything that ends up in the water, they're used to those things from ships going down, especially by now, for as long as ships have been going down. So hard to tell what kind of shark. That's the story of Magel. And we'll get to the end of the show with, you don't hear that every day. Okay, before we get to the end of the show, just want to say thank you all for being here watching. I want everybody to have a Merry Christmas or a Happy Holidays. If you don't celebrate Christmas and you have your holidays, Happy Holidays there. And the only thing we're going to get into today is just this little snippet. This story I found when I was researching all the trial cases from the shark arm murder mystery. This is a little snippet that was off to the right of one of them, and I just had to grab it for my buddies over there in Australia. Hey guys, if the sharks and the crocs and the hippos and everything else you got running around over there, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, we have a problem here. Here's a story. Gentleman is out. It sounds like he's like mountain climbing, doing something like that, and he gets himself stuck to where he can't get out. People do a search for him and start looking for him to rescue him. I don't know how many days you can read this little article to get into the details, but I'm just going to get into the main thing of the other thing that you got to worry about over there in Australia I would have never thought about. It's the camels. It's not funny because this poor guy, he gets rescued after being out there for so many days. They strap him to the back of this camel so that he can be transported back. And somewhere along the line, the camel takes off like a bat out of hell. And this guy is strapped to the back of it, bouncing around. Just I thought it was funny. I mean, you guys have all these other dangerous animals and you can't even get a camel ride. That's the story of that. We'll get to the end of the show. This was in January. This is over in Australia, January of what is this? 1966. Cornelius Meyer. He is a spear fisherman, and he likes to go ahead and he spearfishes for wobbegongs, the shark. He's catching these sharks and I guess eating them. I didn't know you could eat a wobbegong. So he's out there. They don't say what size this shark is, and they don't say what ends up happening leading up to this bite. All this guy knows, he's in the water, he's doing his shark fishing, and all of a sudden a shark bites him and ends up removing part of the seat of his wetsuit with a little bit of his skin. So the shark bit him in the ass. Took part of his skin, and he shot the shark and he took it home and he ate it. So that's Cornelius Meyer, just another Aussie. So that's the show for today as far as the shark stuff. Anybody that wants to stick around for this story, anybody that wants to pass on this one, I'm fine with that. But this is my family's favorite, I guess, maybe one of their favorite stories of all time. Just another one to me, but it's out there. So here we go. This is about 1995-96 time. I have a blue 1990 Sunbird. And like I said, I like stick shifts. Well, this blue 1990 Sunbird had a stick shift. And it's a beautiful summer day. And I'm going to take this car for a car wash. And over on 16 Mile and Groesbeck, for people that are here in Michigan, I'd take it over to 16 Mile in Groesbeck. Me and my father had a shop at 14 and a half in Groesbeck and in Fraser, and that was the car wash that I used at the time. So I go to this car wash, and like I say, a beautiful day, which means that this car wash is packed. And I've never been in a line that far at that car wash ever, but it was lined up. And they were packing them in pretty tight. So anyway, you're in line and they come up and they get your money. I give them the money and they put the little squiggly with the soap on your window to tell people what up there what to do. Anyway, I'm not familiar with protocol at the car wash. All I know is they take soap and they scribble it on my window. Pulling up, they hand me one of those wipes, a little wet wipe thing you can clean your car with. So they hand me that thing, and instead of me just sitting there, like a bump on a log going through there and what I guess is the adult version, I guess, of a carnival ride. I'm going to clean my car as I'm going through. I'm just going to go through there. Well, they pull the truck up in front of me, and the funny thing about this truck is I remember looking at it and thinking how nice it was. It looked like a brand new truck, back in 1996. Big truck, really nice truck. I couldn't remember if it was, even at the time, I couldn't remember if it was a real light gold or just a gray, a silver. Pretty faint color to it, but really nice truck. That's all I remember. And I pull in, he goes in, and then they put me in, and I swear there's 4 feet between the two cars. I've never been this close to where you're not seeing below seeing the bumper of the car in front of you, and this is a truck. I can't see the bumper. I'm like, what the hell? But you don't think about it. You put the car into neutral, and I'm still wiping, cleaning stuff off. Now I'm being pulled through there. And the pulling starts, and I'm looking around, and I'm wiping down, and I see the slot. I see this slot underneath this bar, and I'm like, I want to clean down there. Not thinking, I just pull up on the bar. It's the emergency brake. I am in a packed, like sardines, car wash. It's dark in there. They got water coming on your car. And I'm not yet to them, but I'm coming up on those things, those cloth things. But that's not even on my mind. All I know is I could feel the car lift up and drop down. That is the rollers coming up from under my car. Now, without even thinking, I'm in first gear and I'm trying to drive this thing. Now is when I have the water running down the front of my car, and in between me and the truck in front of me is those red cloths. And I'm trying to feel for when the car lifts up and goes back down when I'm on top of those. I think it did it, and I wasn't sure, so I punched the gas a little bit, and I swear I hit something and went forward a little bit. So, I kind of leaned a little bit forward, and then I'm like, well, damn, now I'm freaking out. So I'm like, I told myself, just keep cleaning. So I keep cleaning the car, but I'm looking out of the periphery of my vision to be able to see what he's doing. And I finally clear those things. I get on the other side of those, and I look, and he's on this side of his car. So he'd be looking like this. He's in his truck. He's got his arm on the seat like they do, staring back at me as I'm cleaning my car. So now I'm like, well, damn, I'm busted. So, now you're going through more water. I can't see what's going on. He gets up and, goes through, and now they're dry off his car. I'm waiting to get through the thing. And I just know that as soon as I get out of this car wash, this guy's going to be off to the side and be wanting to talk to me. Get out, and he's gone. So what we have here is kind of like the shark arm murder mystery. We don't really know if I was in an accident or not. But that is my accident that might have happened in a car wash. So there you go. There's your Christmas story. I'm going to have a really good one for New Year's that is going to make me laugh. I don't know about you. But that's the show for today. I'll see you at least in 2 to 3 days with another show. And until then, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.